like us to start with the first panel discussion on new IPCEI reference architecture. This is something that has been mentioned yesterday. And we will be having Matthias Kuom as the moderator of the session. He is the program manager and CISERO coordinator at DLR. Huge applause for Matthias.
Thanks, Daniel, for the introduction. Welcome, everybody who made it already this morning here to learn about the IPCEI-CIS reference architecture. I mean, it's not the first reference architecture in the world, but I think we can explain what it means in the concept of the IPCEI-CIS. And for that, I want to start with explaining these different terms, and maybe just as a little wake-up exercise, some questions for you. You can raise your hand if you know how IPCEI-CIS is explained. Yesterday there were many partners of the IPCEI-CIS, so who knows? Okay. Good. Only a few. I would have expected more. So, important project of common European interest and cloud infrastructure and services. Maybe a bit more difficult, this logo you have here in the middle. The question is how to pronounce it. Who knows how to pronounce? Okay. Good. So this is EURA, and the difference between the IPCEI-CIS and the EURA is that EURA is a kind of the brand that also creates a framework for the future, because IPCEI-CIS, that's a funding scheme. It will somehow end with the funding. Of course, there will be ongoing activities, but then it's a bit difficult to still call it important project of common European interest. Therefore, we have created this EURA framework for the continuation and also the extension to also be able to bring new partners on board. So that's the idea behind EURA. And then what's CISERO? Who knows what CISERO is? Also, again, hands up. Yeah. Wow. Even better than the ones who know how EURA is pronounced. And who of you has already connected or logged into the collaboration platform we have on the CISERO website? Okay, there we still have to get better. Good. Because what we are doing is, of course, on the one hand, to mediate discussions and, of course, also to connect the program with external stakeholders. But we also, of course, want to promote what's already available. And things we have done in the context of the reference architecture is organized on the one hand a workshop to discuss also the alignment with other reference architectures. And on the website, we have this reference architecture already clickable. Currently, it doesn't give much detail, but the idea is to use this as a mapping for all the developments that will come out of EURA. So I think it's worth to have a look at this. But this is only the introduction of my role as the program manager of CISERO. I have a wonderful panel here today that will give you first an introduction on the current status of the reference architecture, and then we will be open for questions from you, from the audience, because this is meant to be a panel. It's meant to be for interaction with you, so therefore we will have enough time, hopefully, to address your questions. So, on the panel we have, on the one hand, Andreas from SAP, then Mauro from TIM, and Pavel from Octawave. Andreas and Mauro are both heading the work stream on the virtualization layer, and Pavel is responsible for the cross work stream on security. So we will also have a specific focus on the security aspects. And with that, we will start the presentation with Andreas, who will give us the introduction into the reference architecture.
Okay, thanks, Matthias. Good morning. Okay, so earlier this year, we have published the first version of one of the main deliverables of this IPCEI-CIS project, the reference architecture, available for download on the EURA webpage. And this is continued work that we're doing there. That's why it's also important to realize, if you look at this today, it is the first version. It sets the basis. We have a focus on the federated aspects of the components of the IPCEI project overall, but it is an ongoing activity that we're used to continue to invest across the whole IPCEI project to work on this architecture, refine it, and add more beef to the bones there. It is a complex undertaking with 120 partners or so in total in this project to agree on something. That's why the way we've organized this is that we've built a dedicated task force to lead the editing, orchestration of all the input into the document. And we do follow mostly the structure of the IPCEI project itself. The IPCEI is structured in multiple work streams. Matthias already mentioned that Mauro and myself, we represent work stream 2, Cloud Edge capabilities. And Pavel is here for security. But in general, we have it organized in a way that from all work streams, there's representatives who gather input from the work streams and bring it into the architectural core team for the discussions to be able to execute, to produce content. And in a way, it happens what always happens. In a sense, structure always at the end finds its way into architecture, of course, as well. So the architecture that we have right now, we lay out things in different layers of abstraction, from hardware to applications, following loosely the work streams that we have, and then we have a couple of cross-cutting aspects on security, federation, sustainability, and general cloud management capabilities that are kind of vertical to the layers. And that is, in general, the structure that we have defined and that we follow. It is very generic in a sense. It's not. It is generic so that it also helps everyone in the project to find their place, to find their spots in the architecture. But it is still very helpful from my perspective because it allows us in the project and also outside of the IPCEI project to agree on terminology, to agree on what we talk about, and to put things into place and have references. And then also use these boxes and boundaries to have discussions on what do we do at the interfaces, how do the boxes connect, which capability is implemented and identified where, and then we can also work towards, as Matthias mentioned, towards cataloging, mapping out things, and having all partners also find the right spot where they fit into this overall reference architecture design. So it is high level, as I said, but we are working since beginning of the year on the next version of this architecture. Mauro is very much involved, and we'll talk a bit more about what we're doing for version 2.
Okay, thank you. So, as Andreas said, version 1 was published in June this year, and is a sort of baseline. We are now evolving, in particular in two directions. So one direction is about federation. That is, of course, one of the main topics. And the other one is about functional interfaces and potentially going towards a standardization. Let me say standardization is a big word, so we are trying to do something to synthesize the positions of the different partners. This new version 2 is expected in very few weeks, so we are going to publish it by the end of the year. And as I said, there will be something on functional interfaces and something on federation. What is functional interfaces? It's essentially an attempt to interconnect the layers that Andreas has exposed to you. What we have done, we have collected all the inputs of the multiple projects that are the building blocks of IPCEI-CIS. So without imposing anything, just taking a sort of snapshot of what is the current situation. This is the outcome of this exercise. So we have identified 9 interfaces. 2 of them are dedicated to the external transversal topics of sustainability and security. The other ones are internal interfaces. And for each of them, we will provide a description, and we will provide a set of technologies that represent these interfaces. So in the future, you will probably here about interface number 1 of IPCEI-CIS, interface number 2, and so on. What about federation? So, as you know, one of the goals of the project is to establish a multi-provider cloud edge continuum. And in order to have a continuum, you need to federate. What is federation is the attempt of having a sort of common language to describe the interdependencies between the different layers. In the version that we will publish, as said, in a few weeks, there will be a first attempt of describing this federation aspect. So it won't be the full history. Probably there will be something more in the next edition that are expected next year. So we have already also a first picture of federation, but you will see it in our version 2 deliverable. And now I pass the ball to for the security part.
Yes, cheers, guys. Excuse me for me not standing over here, but I really don't like those places. So my name is Pavel, and I'm here representing. Can you hear me well? Very nice. So I'm representing the cross-works team for security. As with my friend Hans Pont, we are delivering some things which were not thought about before. So we are thinking about when we were thinking about delivering outcomes for Aura project, architecture is one of the most important aspects of that, because we have to know what kind of connections, how will all this work. But at some point, the facilitation group and also we have thought that, well, maybe one subject was a little bit left behind. And then the cross-works team for security was born. And I'm very proud to be one of the guys who are delivering this thing. So basically, what we do in this cross-work stream, for the people who are working in IPCEI, you know what are work streams, yes? There's a basic level, and then applications, whatever. And so we thought that the cross-work streams will be the domains which touch the certain subject in all of the projects, and therefore we have sustainability, management, and security. In security, we have decided to deliver some key points. We want to deliver a unified security framework so everyone knows how this should work. I will not just read all of that, because key points why we want to keep security in a grasp in such a big project is quite obvious. I would like to more emphasize on how we have decided to grasp all those information in all of the projects, which are uniquely different. Yes, so we have decided to look at every deliverable which project has as a building block, and then describe how it defines the security in itself and how it interacts with other security components. And while classification of those security building blocks and the detailed technological functional documentation which we have created for the modules, we have identified some security domains which are like identity and access management, application and device security. So through these domains, we can now clearly describe how Aura is affecting, let's say, authentication or security operations and monitoring, because we know that the answer for the needs of business for IDM or identity access management is in this project and that project, and we are doing this in that kind of way and that kind of a way. So while not only delivering outcomes like the deliverables which we have in the projects, we then have to deliver business value. And we cannot deliver business value if the customer asks, how come you have not addressed this kind of thing which interests me? Well, we have it over here. And we are mapping this in every project. Therefore, we're building a value, which is obvious, because if we want to compete with the stacks like Broadcom, we have to have something which is very rigid. It should. Yesterday we've had discussions about why should ever any company switch from Broadcom to OpenStack, or to VirtAura, or to LabAura, to whatever integration which we are creating. Why they should do that? Should we imply this with laws, or should we imply it with quality? So our approach is to have it with quality, because after when the customers will see the project, the products, they will switch automatically. We will not have to have any teasers, any laws which oblige them to do so. So from that point of view, I would really like to emphasize that you take a look at what we are doing in CrossWorks for Security. You will find a few documents which will be published also not later on than the end of this year. And we are creating something which is called a collaborative security framework. It's a CSF. CSF is a very popular acronym right now because it's also a cloud sovereignty framework. So well, they were after us. So CSF is ours. We are CrossWorks for Security. So for today, yes. Thank you very much.
Okay. Thanks, Andreas, Mauro, and Pavel. And as I said, this panel is also a panel for you. So prepare your questions because we have here really the experts for this reference architecture and also for the security mechanisms. But yeah, let's start. I mean, you raised the bar high with this quality aspect you want to address. Currently, what this reference architecture for me is, as Andreas put it, it's something to put things in place. This is just to map things. How do you address this quality aspect or the security mechanisms that need to be established between the different components? Yeah.
It's for me, yes, of course. So how do we assure quality? First, we look at the components and we oblige the partners to change if we see that something is not in the scope of ORA. Because some of the projects were not doing the things the way we wanted them to be done. So that's one thing. Second, while describing the services which will be created in ORA, they will be also security driven. So from my point of view, in all of the work streams, in all of the documentation, there will be reference to CrossWorks for Security, to the collaborative security framework, through which we say that the best way to do so is like this and that and that. And also, last thing, we provide the continuous work with the partners. So we work every 2 weeks. We do the refining meeting where we see the progress of all of the projects. And I think, from my point of view, it will be the best way to deliver the best quality.
Okay, then.
Maybe just to add in a general comment on quality and architecture. I mean, how do you measure the quality of an architecture? I guess in general is, you try to figure out, is it applicable? Is it helpful? Will actually real world implementations fit into this architecture? And that's also why we do run a few pilot activities across the partners, across the companies that are part of the IPCEI project to see how can the use cases, the real world implementations, these pilots be implemented and fit into this architecture that we're doing, and to prove that it's not only on paper, but it can be put into reality as well. I think that's also for us a very important activity in the project.
Okay, for this quality checking, so to say, do you already have real life examples or pilots where the architecture as a whole or parts of it are already being tested?
Well, yes, in IPCEI-CIS, in particular in our work stream, we have a number of pilots. One is Labora, that I mentioned first because it's the one where we are involved also more deeply from team side. There will be also some demonstration of this pilot in future events, probably in the General Assembly of IPCEI next year and in other exhibitions. And then we have the Apeirora, that is the pilot based essentially on the technology of SAP. So Andreas has, of course, more details on it. And we have a third pilot that is called the Virtuora, that is the one based on Open Nebula technologies. And also this one is evolving towards more, let's say, practical implementations. We have other pilots in other work streams. For example, there is a new one that is recently that has recently started that is called Ambition, and it's essentially based on AI technologies in what we call Worthing 3 in IPCEI. And then, of course, all these use cases that Andreas has mentioned are important for us because reference architecture should not be a theoretical exercise. It should be the architecture that then will be used not only by operators or cloud providers, but also by external players that will make use of the cloud.
That's an important aspect, that it will be used, that you also maybe allow externals to use it to better understand how they can implement things and how they can integrate in this stack, in this architecture. So for the next steps, you said you're preparing version 2 and maybe you also have a roadmap further on. When would you expect concrete implementation guidelines or even things like certification schemes that allow, on the one hand, the partners that are already within the IPCEI-CIS, but also external partners to put them on the map of this architecture? Maybe to Andreas?
Yeah, I mean, I think we are still a bit far away from concrete implementation guidelines. I mean, we are not defining a product here. I mean, that also needs to be clear, I think. You know, it is, even though our target is to establish or to enable this multi-provider cloud edge continuum to become a reality, which means that at the end, it's not about telling each and every party, each and every provider how to implement their bits and pieces of the overall solution. It's more about, in my mind, enabling the interoperability of solutions to define, the functional interfaces that Mauro mentioned, to make sure that things can connect, to make sure that multiple entities, also new companies, can enter the market, can become part of the overall cloud edge continuum based on, following the functional interfaces, the standards, the architecture that we are setting. And then, in a sense, it's not about products and allowing someone to install a specific product, and it's not about certifying a certain product. It's about the standards, the interfaces, and to enabling the interoperability among solutions more than anything else, I would say.
Yeah, I fully agree, because that's the same thing which we do in security. We ensure that every component speaks an open language. So if we create a new key management system, it has to do with key MAP or whatever you need, which is open source.
Okay, I look into the audience. Are there already questions from the audience to the panelists? No, everything's... sorry, couldn't see it. There's a microphone coming.
Thank you. So, Anders Question from Lund University. So, looking at your, particularly in the security domain here, the work that you are doing, and I think it's all fine. My question is, when you talk about identity and these federated identity solutions, do you look at what's being done on sort of the academic side and or for the EU wallet? Do you see that that could be a way for identifying the users that were going to use these things?
So the question is, because I did not hear too well, whether are we cooperating with universities, for this example, with the identity and access management, so we can...
yeah, I'm thinking like entities like GEANT and who are doing the federation for EuroHPC and for EASC.
It's more up to the projects themselves. So we, as a cloud security, as a cross-working for security, when we are not reaching out to the other companies, we rely more on what the projects themselves do, because, well, it might be really impossible to orchestrate all that, unfortunately. I'm sorry, that's a very straightforward answer.
Are there further questions? Yes.
Thank you. Andrew Adams from Major University. So again, on the security theme, I'm afraid. So one of the biggest problems we have at the moment in security is ransomware. and I wonder whether there is a specific element of this architecture which, to my mind, it may well be that the common federatable systems are actually more resistant to ransomware attacks than single site systems. How much have you looked at that specific threat, which seems to be one of the biggest and growing threats in the cybersecurity realm at the moment, and how much have you taken account of that specific threat in developing the security architecture?
I did not know that this question would show up, but I'm very ready for that because, well, exactly that's what my project is about. So I can take my time right now. But yeah, we can talk more. I don't want to take all of the space, but yes, there are projects which directly conflict this threat. From virtual hardware security model, which is one of my deliverables, through all of the other projects which include confidential computing. And in confidential computing, we have well, quite a lot of subjects with format preserved encryption, and well, of course, confidential computing regarding on what you can do on NVIDIA's. Lots of those. But yes, ransomware is one of the subjects which are being covered by the cross-source info security, and we have solutions for that.
Okay. Then I think we need to close the panel with one final question. I intended to ask the top 3 challenges that you expect to address with the next version of the reference architecture. But let's keep it short. And what's the top challenge you would see? Let's start with Andreas. Mauro. Yeah.
Well, version 3, as I anticipated, will be next year, so probably in the first half. One of the first topics will be to analyze more in details the 2 innovations, so it's actually 2 points. So one is the federation and the other functional interfaces, because what we will see in this version 2 is an introduction, setting the scene, let's say, and then we will go probably more into the details in the next version next year, also collecting potential further interfaces in the different layers and not only between layers as we have done so far. And then we have probably also the third challenge is to take into consideration, then maybe if Andreas has more, but take into consideration the inputs from use case owners, so requirements that could come from external world.
One thing to add, Andreas?
I think we have enough challenges. I think, but what I see as a good outcome of all of this discussion is that it allows us really also across different industries, telcos, software providers, to come together and come to a common terminology and agreement on what do we talk about, what do we mean when we talk about certain things. And that, for sure, was one of the main challenges that we identified when working on version 1. And the improvements we are making there, I think, is a huge step forward with this architecture and in the group.
And Pavel, one final short sentence.
Honestly, I really encourage you to take a deep dive into what work we are doing right now, because it will build on how we cooperate. And how we cooperate in Aura is one of the most important things, because this project should be highly integrated on every level.
Wow, perfect. Thanks a lot. With that, I hand back to Daniel.
Thank you very much. Huge round of applause for Pavel, Mauro, Andreas, and Matthias for moderating the session.